guys, today we're going to be going over some of the more interesting books in my collection. Basically, the way I'm going to be ranking them is most expensive to least expensive, and you'll see later on that some of the books in the collection that they actually don't have a price on them because they're that rare, but I'm pretty sure some of you are going to be correcting me in the comments about that, but basically, we're just going to be starting off with this one. This is Agatha Christie, Murder in Mesopotamia. And I have read through it. I did not agree with the interpretation, but I think it was a product of the times. It was said that Agatha Christie did live in Iraq for a while, and I thought that kind of did influence her writing in this, because she did talk about like landmarks and certain aspects of the climate. Obviously, I didn't live back in, I believe it was 1935 when this was published, so I'm not quite sure about the climate there back then, but I have visited. But yeah, this is a 1969 edition, and I looked it up and it looks like it retails for $10. There are listings on Amazon and eBay for similar titles, but I thought it was super interesting because it's from such a long time ago, and this is obviously a reprint. The next one is Jodie Piccolo, The Book of Two Ways. In this book, I did not agree with its interpretation of like the climates and like the culture of Egypt. I feel like it gets it wrong, but it's kind of like wish fulfillment for, I would say, middle-aged women who want like an exotic encounter, basically. The special thing about this book, it is signed, but it is a signed edition from Barnes & Noble. So there are a lot out there. It's not a rare book at all. And it retails for $18 to $25 on eBay. I believe back then it retailed for $28. So even with it being signed, it has lost a lot of value, even though it is a hardcover edition, special edition from Barnes & Noble. But it just goes to show you, just because a book is signed, it doesn't necessarily equate to either retaining a value or even having a higher value later on. It's more of a gimmick, but if you are a fan of the author, maybe it'll have like more sentimental value. Personally, as you can see, like I barely even got through the book. it kind of disgusted me with the interpretation that it had of like the Egyptian people, and maybe there are fans of the book, but I could probably insert the Goodreads. It'll have a low review. Maybe the reviews will agree with me, but I'm not quite sure about that. The next one, I picked it up at a book sale. It's called the Alpha Morphet, and it has a inscription to a person who probably got the sign back then, to Benjamin: dream, wonder, create, have fun. And it's signed by the author. I believe his name is J something. J Pulaski. And the reason why I picked it up, I actually didn't notice it was signed initially. I kind of only noticed that once I got home. It was sort of in a general bin of donated books, but what really intrigued me about this book is the illustrations and how basically like every letter can go into another letter. Just the illustrations are so vibrant and so magical. I enjoyed it so much just by looking at it. And so just this book, I think it's underappreciated at what it is. I didn't really see a lot of online commentary about it. I believe it is on Goodreads. It was published in 1999. Only one run was made of this book, so it could be rare, but even a signed edition, from what I saw, I believe it was on 8 books, goes for $18 to $35, so I guess maybe it was a commercial failure, but maybe your tastes have to be a little bit more eccentric to even enjoy this book. The art is a little bit jarring, but I feel like if you do like eccentric art and modern art, I think you would enjoy this. But it's something I like just looking at. The next one is also another signed edition by Matt Phelan. It's Snow White. It's a graphic novel. Now, reading through this book, surprisingly, even though it is a graphic novel, I enjoy most graphic novels. Let me just give you that disclaimer, but for some reason, the story here did not click with me at all. The art is fine, I believe. I know it took a long time for the artist to create these paintings. I can tell it's some sort of graphite ink, probably charcoal based for the initial lines, but they probably used a gray watercolor ink to create the other lines. But clearly they inked all of this. Like there is a large amount of inking involved, ink washes, which if you've ever done inking before, it is a difficult method to get these values that you can see here. So the art is beautiful. The story, it is a retelling of Snow White. So like basically a woman meets these children, and they're basically a replacement for, I guess, the dwarves in Snow White. Even then, the original Disney adaptation or retelling of the story, I didn't really enjoy it as a child, but this retelling, it was fine. I really didn't have that many complaints, even though I am complaining right now. I just didn't click with me, but it was at the same book sale that I found this book as the Alpha Morphet book, but it is signed. So specifically, it is signed with the ticker taper from the end of the book and throughout the book. And basically, this is like the man in the mirror for this version of the book. It's signed by Matt Phelan. I think he inscribed 2018, I believe. I'm not sure what that number is, but essentially, it's signed. And even with it being signed with that little image of a ticker taper, I saw that it retailed for $25 signed. And even with the original value, it says it was $19.99 initially, US. So with it being signed, it doesn't depreciate the value, but it does slightly increase it. My copy does have some damage, but I imagine that wouldn't really be a factor in the price, but I'm not even sure if it's even worth that to me personally, if I would ever pay that much. I remember I think I bought it for maybe $1 or $2 from this charity event. It was just kind of lying in a bin of other graphic novels, so I'm not sure if the previous owner even misses this book. But it is beautiful, but the story, it isn't something that I would go out of my way to read again. So this is We Are All Children Searching for Love by Leonard Nimoy. It is a collection of various poetry, photographs. It is dedicated to Leonard Nimoy's wife, I believe, and his children. So what made me interested in this book is the fact that it was written by Leonard Nimoy, and I am a big fan of Star Trek. I do own a copy of the Star Trek The Next Generation novel, and it was about the Next Generation, obviously not the original series, but I am a Star Trek fan. I don't really collect much books from Star Trek or about Star Trek. I did see an engineering manual at that same book fair, but didn't really catch my eye. I would say I'm more of a casual fan. But the original series was something I watched a lot growing up. on like channels that featured a lot of old media. So I wasn't quite old enough to watch it when it originally aired. I imagine most people are, but it was a good show, I would say. But this book is by the actor that played Spock on the original series, and the poetry and the quality of the work here is very interesting. And this edition was published, let me see here. It was published in 1977. And so this is the second printing, actually. But even that, though, is the second printing, and it was published such a long time ago, it retails on the web for $47. It was originally $3.50, even adjusting for inflation. I believe it has appreciated in value. My edition does have some minor damage on the spine, but considering all that, the body of work inside this small poetry book is very amazing, I would say. I did thoroughly enjoy reading it. I don't think I would ever sell it, much like any of my books. Usually, if I am looking to downsize my collection, I would usually go for the route of donating it. I feel like selling a book is such a hassle for me. I have attempted it once or twice, but it's not really something I would ever consider. But this book in particular, I don't think I would ever part with it. It is a very beautiful book and a beautiful collection of works by Leonard Nimoy. The next one is one that I did not get from a charity shop or consignment shop or a fair or anything, but it is Mouse Guard. As you can see, it is basically in mint condition. I have kept it within my collection for probably, I would say, almost 6 years or so, probably a little bit more than that. And essentially, it is a signed edition. So I actually got this signed in person by the author. It was at like a comic sort of event, and he just happened to be there, and these were available for purchase, and he would sign them. I did ask him if he would possibly draw a mouse for me, and he did, but I have heard of this series before. I used to be a big fan of just reading random graphic novels at the library, and I believe my English teacher at the time, he recommended us to go to the event because the Mouse Guard author was going to be there, and he was just a big fan. So he did offer extra credit for going there, visiting the booth of Mouse Guard, because he was such a big fan and he wanted to have the author have a lot of support at this event. It was a very small regional event, so there was not that much attendance, but I did manage to go there and I did manage to get the extra credit. But even a signed copy of this, the estimated value is worth $50. The original retail value is $25. I believe I did pay slightly more than that at the time. I think it was like $30. But it is a beautiful copy. The art is beautiful. The story is amazing. Even you can see here, just from these panels, you can see the level of work that goes into each panel. Really, it's breathtaking. It is a beautiful copy. And even though it is worth an estimated value of $50, I don't believe I would ever part with it. So the next book is one that I find to be really interesting, I would say. So you can see on the cover that this is labeled for adult readers, and it's called Disciples of Darkness by D.M. Gordon. It's a Beeline book printing. So the strangest thing about this book is when I initially went to look it up, I could not find anything on the book. There is a Goodreads page available, so it does exist. I was actually the first review on that page. It was published in 1968, and I got it because the cover and the style of the book looked very unusual to something I would see. At the time I didn't realize it was such an old book, but even reading through some of it, it seems to be a plot that revolves around a detective who's trying to figure out the murder of his sister, and he has a companion with him who acts like a Watson character, but they're female, and she's, I believe, like 18 or something. And basically they try to solve this mystery involving a cult of some sort. I would say it's written to be as such I would say an exotic sort of read in terms of like, or eccentric sort of read in terms of the content. It's not something that I would read, I would say, on a bus or something. Although I don't think anybody would know what this is. That's hence the blank cover. If I were to put something on the cover, it'd probably be some sort of indication of it's adult content, I would say. That's basically what I would say. This doesn't belong on, like, I would say a general bookshelf that you would leave out, or a book that you would leave out. It's something that I would probably publish on Wattpad or something, or AO3. It reads like that. It's not a good book, I would say, in terms of literature, but it's an interesting book. And it is actually on Amazon. There's one copy available. It is $95 on Amazon, so I don't believe anybody has searched for it either, so I'm not sure. I picked it up at an estate sale randomly. They were just handing these out. It was like a box of old books, but yeah, this is the book that I picked up because it looks so weird. I believe this is this is obviously not the author's real name. It's some sort of cover or something, but it's an interesting book, I would say. I would not pick it up again. I did stop reading it halfway through, but again, it's a very interesting read. So the next one is a more interesting find, I would say. It is a book on, I believe it is a fictional book. It's about a single mother's heartfelt search for greater truths about the universe. I'm going to be honest, I haven't read this yet. I don't know if I have any desire to read it because it's not something I would gravitate towards, but the only reason I picked it up is because what's covered under here says to contact the publisher if found, which it was in a thrift shop, so I didn't really exactly come by this with probably the means that the author intended. Although when I did look at it initially, one of my favorite authors, the one that wrote Station 11, which is a sci-fi sort of novel, which I very much enjoyed. I did give away my copy, but I think the endorsement of one of my favorite authors did initially make me gravitate towards it, but I actually didn't see this until I got home, which is probably the theme of the video. I noticed that it is an uncorrected proof, as you can see here, and it is 7 of 19 copies. So even going through the initial couple pages, you can see that the previous owner did annotate some of it by underlining, I would say, some locations, places of note mentioned in the novel. I'm not sure if that was their job to do all that, but when I did look up the page count compared to this edition does have a higher page count compared to the standard edition. I'm not sure if that even matters, but it's not something I would probably read. I mean, maybe if I'm bored one day, I'll probably read it, but again, it's something I just picked up because I just gravitated towards the cover. It was pretty, but I might read it, but it's not something I would read probably now. Maybe it's a fall read. Let's put it that. But for it being an uncorrected proof, it doesn't have a value. I would say an advertised value. So I'm not sure where it falls along the spectrum of the previous books that I've mentioned, but right now it ranks number 1 for unknown. It's something I would not care about parting with, but it is also something that I don't think anybody would really want to begin with, because I don't believe that there is really a big fan base for this sort of book. So yeah, these were the books that I found most interesting in my collection that had some sort of price. They're not necessarily the books that have the most sentimental value to me, because there are many others, but if you wanted to see my ranking of my favorite books within my collection, let me know. But these books right here are probably the most high valued ones. Although I do have other books in my collection that are not technically books, they're more like reference books that do have a slightly higher value, but these are the most conventional books that I have that have some sort of value. But thank you and goodbye.